Yeah, I don't like to. Hi, you're watching Legends of Tabletop, and I'm Cody Goodfellow.
Yes, thank you for joining us today, Cody, especially with the hoops that kind of have presented themselves to be jumped through. I know you've been on Legends of Tabletop before, but not under my watch. I'm certain you have some very interesting updates to share with us about what you're up to.
Oh yeah, a lot of fantastic things are in the offing. I've got my first novel with Eraserhead Press coming out in the new year. Probably my fifth collection coming out in spring from Kingshot Press. Working on numerous short film projects, a couple of feature films in the offing. New magazine project based around the art of Mike Dubish that's probably going to start happening early in the next year. Yeah, loads and loads of fantastic stuff that I can talk about, and loads of hints of things yet to come about which I must stay mum, but which I can make all kinds of smug faces about. Yeah, no, it's a really exciting time. A lot of things are happening. One of the things that I'm really excited about that I think we're closest to be able to talk about is a anthology with PS Press that I'm co-editing with Joe Pulver, called Maps of Dream, and that this one has been a long, slow, difficult gestation period because of Joe's health problems. And just, I think because of the nature of the project, what we were asking for was something very eclectic and very, very different that is an order of magnitude. I don't know if an order of magnitude stranger, but goes way beyond just the kind of knee-jerk Lovecraftian, hey, this is a mythos story, you're kind of trapped, you have to buy it. But we wanted to take the concept of the dreamlands, of a shared reality, that a common reality that we enter in during liminal states of sleep, and update that, not just take it into the modern era, but re-examine the concept of what a shared collective unconscious would look like in the modern era with technology and the already kind of false collective unconscious that we have with media, and how those things would have a cascading effect on that reality, and whether we still have that reality. So we were asking for a different kind of challenge from our authors, but the stuff that we've started to get in, well, we're all with the book is almost completed, but the stuff that we've got in is really phenomenal, and I think really challenging, and represents kind of a new mutation of modern weird fiction. So that's just one really exciting thing that's going on.
Now I have a question to ask you about that.
Right.
How, since you've gotten most of the authors anthology, how would it differ from the works that we're already familiar with, such as Kish Johnson's The Dream Quest of Velvet Bow, and then we've got Brian Lumley's
his Hero and Elden books. Yeah. That was actually the direction that we specifically asked people not to take.
Okay.
Like with Lumley's Hero and Elden stories, they're sort of these episodic picaresque fantasies. And Lumley, I think, because he liked heroic fantasy more than weird fantasy, he's a very, very, in that cold existential field, he's a very bold, vigorous voice for human agency. And so you get these stories where people are able to go do wonderful, fantastic things that transcend the kind of ordinary lives that they lead. But he kind of left behind that sort of ironic disparity. We wanted things less like Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath and more like the Quest of Iranon, which is a smaller, more ironic story that's more about the journeyer than the journey. And we specifically enjoin them don't just show us what Cellophane is like with Wi-Fi, cafes and stuff like that, or don't just update those pre-existing myths, but show how the entire universe and that entire relationship would be changed. So they're very much more these surreal dream journeys rather than being a fantastical quest. And elements of fantasy do come in there, but in a sense that really addresses what our relationship to fantasy is, whether it's escape, and also the sense of commodification of fantasy. Because we have a lot of these sort of pseudo dream states that we can enter as an escape from waking reality, whether it's binge watching TV, which I think creates it's a different kind of relationship to if you're watching a film. When you're watching a film, your eyes are entrained in one spot, and things are happening, and so it's sort of like a dream, but you come out of it relatively quickly. If you're binge watching an entire 13 episode thing at one sitting, you kind of get completely saturated in this other reality. And so it's an escape, but it's a dictated escape. Same thing with video games, Xbox Live and things like that. You can kind of exist in that other reality for a long, long time, but it's not really lighting out for the territories. It's not going to Narnia. It's a corporate playpen. And yes. That was one of the things that we were seeing in a lot of the submissions. In one of my own stories that I appears in Black Wings 4, I wrote a story called Broken Sleep about a young man who's in a privatized prison, and they're doing sleep deprivation experiments on him in order to try and get him to that state where he's dreaming while still awake, and then actually penetrate that and use people as a way of getting into the dreamlands, and so that they can start setting up Wi-Fi and malls and cafes and billboards and things and commodify where we all go to sleep, because that's really our last escape.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, and you bring up escape, and I must thank you for doing such a fantastic job of taking the reader to someplace absolutely far, far away from anything that they may currently be experiencing, because I enjoyed Repo Shark during a time when I was very ill, and just being in my body was just someplace that I did not want to be.
Oh, wonderful.
And that gave me a real reprieve for a brief moment, just some respite from that.
Right.
And I just want to thank you beyond this interview. But yeah, I thank you for that.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I mean, that Repo Shark was a unique, weird book, in that the circumstances that drove it were being in a really wonderful place, the most wonderful place on earth, being in Hawaii and having a rotten time.
Yeah.
I went on a series of family vacations that were the first time I'd ever been to Hawaii, and yet we'd go once or twice a year, and it varied with my now former wife's family, and it would be a wonderful, lavish vacation in the most gorgeous place on earth. And yet, if you're staying at like a Marriott resort and you're going to outlet malls and you're not going to the beach, you're going to the water slide park, you very quickly come to develop this real weird sense of dislocation. I'm in the most wonderful place on earth, and yet it feels like I'm in the process. I'm destroying it in order to appreciate it, or I'm enjoying a really creepy ersatz fake Hawaii. And it was that frustration, and at the same time a recognition with my own work. I was starting to look at the kinds of things that I was doing with fiction. And I'd always had a very atavistic, iconoclastic, confrontational streak. I was frustrated with horror fiction that had kind of become comfort fiction, where it's revisiting these tropes that are no longer scary or shocking, and so it's kind of just your horror becomes like ugly Beanie Babies. You're getting the same comforting feeling out of it that other people get out of whatever they collect and stuff, and so I wanted to do things that genuinely found an uncalloused nerve and really worked on it. And I was starting to shift in my process just because of frustration with my own life and frustration with my career, and ask myself, what do I want to read? Do I really want somebody to get into my ugliest ugliest, darkest place that I don't want to confront and jump out at me from there, or do I want to take readers someplace that they want to go? And yet at the same time bring in that sense of frustration when you're exactly where you want to be and somehow it sucks. And to really open up that id impulse, you know, how do you reconcile that, or how do you overcome that sense of frustration when you get the thing that society says you're supposed to want to have and it gives you no pleasure? And so it was supposed to be a romp that really kind of recognizes that sense of frustration, that sense of inner rage when playing the game and even winning the game. It feels like an empty dumb show. And so and to make it exhilarating, to fill it with this wild sense of, you know, what if I did that? What if my id was completely unleashed and went off in this really crazy direction? So I was really touched by what you said about it, that it did take you to a place other and help you get away from that, because that's the purest, simplest sense of escape, and that is the purest, simplest gift that you can give somebody else with a story. So
absolutely, thank you. Oh gosh, what was I going to say before I got off track with Repo Shark? Oh man, but yeah, I do like my Kindle. I've been browsing your Amazon page. I do not have that issue of Cemetery Dance that you're in. Oh my goodness,
that story. Well, depending on which story, I think if it wasted, no, not wasted on the young. A Drop of Ruby? No, that was in Third Alternative. God, I'm getting old. Burning Names was in the issue in 2004, I believe. That was kind of my coming out party, because Skip wrote a really nice essay in there. That was shortly after I met Skip at a World Horror in Phoenix. And that story is in Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, which is sadly out of print. It should be coming back in a new incarnation soon. But yeah, it's scary how long I've been around. Anyway.
Well, no, I was just gonna mention something. I tried to find some memorabilia from Necronomicon '99.
Oh,
and
God.
I was gonna ask you. I remember seeing you at a prayer breakfast in '99. How long have you been doing?
Wait, I wasn't at a prayer. No, the first prayer breakfast. I don't know. That was an ersatz Cody Goodfellow. Yeah. No, the first prayer breakfast that I ever jumped in on was in Portland at the Lovecraft Film Festival.
Oh, okay.
Like 2007 or 8. Okay. I delivered an address alongside Bob Price, and then I think the following year, Bob had some major problems with hay fever here, and so because of allergies, I jumped in and did the opening and closing blessing and stuff like that. So yeah, I wasn't involved until about 2006 or 2007.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then I kind of hijacked.
Good. I'm glad I didn't find anything, because you wouldn't have been in it.
Okay, yeah, no, so that was somewhere in Apocrypha. But if I can retroactively be doing these and have done, if it's expanding at both ends, then that's a wonderful thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, but yeah, just very quickly, I know this does not involve your writing career, but tell me about the experience of being an extra on American Horror Story.
Oh gosh. Okay. Yeah, I was living in Los Angeles, and I got a SAG card through a series of weird serendipitous events. Basically, I was I was in a short film, and I had 2 lines, and I was holding a newspaper in front of my face, and they looped my dialogue. So you don't see my face, you just see my hand. But it was a SAG eligible film, so I got a letter. And I joined SAG, and I started doing background work through Central Casting, and I got a whole bunch of work. And because of the way I looked at the time, I mostly played homeless people and junkies. And I'm in about 5 or 6 shows that were shot last year wearing the same outfit. So I kind of play the same character on a bunch of different things. I'm on
That
You're the
makes a lot of sense because I remember seeing you at Necro 24. Was it? No, it was 2015, I think.
2015.
And yeah, and the way that you were huddled down on the ground. At first, I thought you were a homeless person.
Yeah, yeah. I
'Cause,
earned more money then than off of book sales that weekend.
wow.
So yeah, but yeah, for American Horror Story, I was an extra. This was for not cult. It's the Roanoke show. I did I was playing one of the population of settler ghosts, and it was probably the best summer job I've ever had because we did about 30 days of shooting. And some days they would just feed you and keep you on tap, and then you'd come up for like 1 hour, and then they'd have you come back down for another couple of hours until they were sure they wouldn't need you, and then they'd send you home. But it was that was the most involved I've ever been with any show. Got to work with Kathy Bates, who was marvelous, just really wonderful, humble, very dedicated. And the rest of the cast and crew, and they had they'd worked on it from season to season, and so they really were tight like a family and very confident, and thus they treated us really well. It was a fun experience. It was also kind of frustrating. Just to give you for example of how the Hawaii thing can screw up your life, they would call you on Friday and tell you or ask you what your availability is for the following week. And once they called me and said they weren't going to have any shooting for the following week. And so I went to Hawaii with my wife's family, and I was literally picking up my luggage at the turnaround, and they call and ask, "Hey, can you come in tomorrow? Kathy's going to be cutting everybody's throats." Well, this was the thing that we had been building up to all summer, the really exciting day. And yeah, I don't know if anybody's ever been so pissed off to find themselves in Hawaii as I was right then. Because I was like, you swore you're not going to do it. And now I want to go home. So yeah, one of my friends called from the set, and he's like, yeah, they're handing out poison apples. Oh, we're gonna cut all our throats. And that was the same week. The week that I wasn't there was the week that they shot on another set. We were shooting in Malibu Canyon all year. That's why it looks so much like North Carolina. But we were shooting. They were shooting on another location that week when I wasn't there, and that was the week that the pictures of the tree with Croatoan carved into it leaked out. And according to TMZ, it was they were saying it was a background actor. So I called and I asked my PA, I'm like, okay, so I'm not the guy who did it because I'm the only guy who wasn't there. And they're like, oh yeah, yeah, we're sorry about that. That we know it wasn't any of you guys. So it was an engineered leak that they said, yeah, it was an irresponsible background actor, and that person's been disciplined or something. But it was funny being inside that at the time because it was something that they leaked. It was strategic, and it made sense because it was a good way to get it out. But the sense that it had to be some sort of weird scandal, because those are the kinds of things when you're on set, they tell you don't take pictures, don't keep stuff to yourself, don't post it on Facebook and everything. Because if you do that, yeah, you're going to get ruined, and they're going to call central casting and go, yeah, this guy gave away the store. But it was something that they were doing to promote the show at the same time. It's I mean, yeah, of course it's all very weird and surreal. When they had a big nude scene, and nude scenes, I mean, there's of course it's really prickly and it's a sensitive issue and stuff like that, and so they take all kinds of precautions with it. But yeah, if you're a background actor, all nudity means is you're getting triple time. My big heartbreak was that I started doing background work about 2 weeks after they wrapped shooting for Westworld, because everybody that I was on shows with, on the beard circuit, whether you're playing homeless guys or medieval guys, everybody that I talked to who had a bigger beard than me had been on Westworld, and they were like, "Hey, yeah, who they didn't even ask, were you on Westworld? They were like, who were you on Westworld? Did you get naked time? Because yeah, all those people standing around, the reason why that show was so expensive, it wasn't the special effects or the expansive cast or the size or anything. It's because there's huge crowds of naked extras just standing around making, $100 an hour. And so it was really weird being in the waiting area at American Horror Story the days when they were doing nude shoots, because they'd have like 24 people come in just with robes on, and half of them were really exhilarated. A few of them were like really disturbed and weirded out because I was standing around naked. But it's such a weird experience, because a lot of the guys that weren't naked, that were just like background, were going, hey, there's naked time to be had. I'll drop trow. So people's attitudes to it are really fascinating. And of course, it's a really, really surreal experience. But on that show, we had no idea what the hell was going on, what we were making, how the thing worked out. We were watching, what little we were seeing of the thing and trying to piece it together. And by the end of it, we were like, I don't think we're the real ghosts. I think there's a whole other crowd of guys wearing our costumes when we're not here, playing the other ghosts. And there's some sort of twist going on. But it's weird being involved in something that big where nobody really knows what's going on, any more than, a private or a sergeant at Normandy wouldn't understand what the big picture was.
Yeah.
And so, when there's especially from one week to the next, we'd be shooting, the different episodes from one day to the next and things like that. And so different episodes would have different directors attached. And so then it's like you have the same army, but you show up to fight a campaign, and there's a different general, and he's got different notes and a different idea of what war looks like. And sometimes the different general, you play the whole game the whole day trying to figure out who's actually the director. Because if you hear somebody giving you instructions, you can be damn sure that's not the director. It's probably the second assistant director, maybe the first assistant director. But the difference can be remarkable. One week we worked on a show where Jennifer Lynch was the director, David Lynch's daughter. And she was completely different. She was very hands-on. She went around and introduced herself. And at the end of the day, she still remembered our names, because when she was doing, arranging a scene, she'd holler from the back end of the room, Cody, can you take 2 steps closer to Kathy? That's fantastic. You're amazing, dear. And no director ever talks directly to the auxiliary talent, let alone remembers their names at the end of the day. And so how different it can be, in spite of, it being a whole bunch of different people. I think that was it would be the difference between, Patton, because Patton would get out there and actually talk to the troops and slap them. Jennifer didn't slap anybody, but it was a remarkable experience. And from what I understand, I only watched like the first 3 episodes of the program. From what I understand from people that are on that have watched the whole thing, there's like 2 or 3 shots where there's kind of a gray, mushy guy in the background who might be me.
No, I just had to ask you about that, because I know that we do have some audience members in the wings from the Horror Everything group. I just wanted to shout out to those guys.
Hey.
But yeah. Caring for your mountain of hair in glow.
Right.
Is there anything that you had done to care for the mountain of hair that you had around you in that sort of glow?
No, I mean, I had, my hair was about as long as my beard at the time. I kept it the same look for American Horror Story. But I was fast reaching that point where my hair was thinning on top. And so the hair around the sides, it was just accentuating that. So I didn't, before I got into Gallagher or Evil Clown territory, I elected to cut it. Yeah, on the glow set, and that I only worked on that for 2 days shooting, for the one scene. I think it's in episode 8. And that they just teased it out a lot. I think that was the last thing I did before I cut my hair. That, or I was also on a show called Kevin Hart's Guide to Black History, which I don't think is aired yet. And that was, I think, for like the Learning Channel or something. And I think it's a special, but I played an abolitionist in that. On Glow, yeah, it was just they went over my hair a couple times, and there was a lady who would come by and go, "You're sweating off your dirt," and she would layer on new dirt on me. But yeah, that was mostly just naturalness and 2 days not washing it.
Oh wow. Gosh, I'm just been sitting here enjoying this wonderful coffee, and I'm going to interject for just a brief moment with a word from our sponsors here at Legends of Tabletop. We do have wonderful, wonderful sponsors. We love you guys. I just wanted to give a shout out to Birds of a Feather Coffee Company, who roasts their unique craft coffees in batches. It's fresh. You know, their signature blends showcase the amazing breadth and depth of flavors that coffee has to offer. The Night Owl blend, which is what I currently use, for instance, is a rich, deep cup of coffee with notes of smooth caramel, decadent cocoa, and bittersweet molasses with just a touch of acidity to cleanse the palate so you're ready for your next sip. Check out all of the Birds coffees and order now at birdscoffeecompany.com. There's a brew for every birdie at birdscoffeecompany.com, and you can get a 10% discount for a limited time with the code LEGENDS10 at checkout. And check out the Legends Legendary Brew as well. So thank you for your time. All right.
Yeah.
So let's see. I'm just looking at all of the wonderful chat books that I've got for you, and then I've got Monstrous to check out. You were in that anthology, and I'm just going to go through my library of stuff from you. I've got Rapture of the Deep.
Rapture of the Deep. Yes, that collects my best Lovecraftian mythos fiction.
This is inscribed to Joe.
How'd you end up with that? You
picked it to me? I think Joe ended up with the one inscribed to me.
Oh golly. That's gonna be a difficult exchange to transact, but
I know we have not, so I think we're both happy with that. And I believe you're in Edge of Sundown.
I am, yeah. I have a Western in there. I have I've written some. Yeah, I'm in there. I have a story called Blind Item. It's a sort of new take on undead fiction with a paparazzo and a very thinly fictionalized portrait of a very troubled celebrity.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been in a lot of stuff.
Yes.
I kind of did everything backwards. So I wrote my first 3 novels before I had any really fiction sales or short fiction sales.
Oh, so you did the novel thing first?
Yes. I had ideas for novels, but could not seem to get my head around the short story game. I had a couple of short stories that I had written but couldn't market. In 2003, I took a UCSD extension class with Nancy Holder, excellent writer, amazing teacher, and somehow something there clicked, and I was able to figure out how to distill the kinds of things that fascinate me in small enough bite-sized chunks, and coming out of there, a couple of stories that I wrote from there. Burning Names was my first appearance in Cemetery Dance, and A Drop of Ruby, which appeared in Third Alternative, which became Black Static right after that. So yeah, after that,
Cemetery Dance.
Sorry,
your first appearance was in Cemetery Dance.
Well, first professional appearance. I had a couple of stories that appeared in, sort of lamentable, kind of semi-pro, to put it generously, publications. But yeah, the first thing that probably anybody would have come across in 2004 was there. But my first sale was a role-playing game guide to Chaosium in 1995. They didn't end up putting it out till 2006.
Oh, wow.
That whole transaction kind of left me rather mistrustful and paranoid, frankly. And so I self-published my first novel without shopping it around.
Wow.
Just because I wanted to put the thing out exactly as I saw it being. And I was frustrated enough at that point with trying to get into publishing and trying to find a home for the kind of stories that I wanted to tell, that self-publishing seemed like a good idea, and not just going through like CreateSpace or Publish America or any of the other things that were around then, but we actually went to an offset printer and paid for 2,500 copies of the first book, and we weren't unsurprisingly weren't able to get reviews for it anywhere, and but it was the first of two. So then when we did start to get some reviews and reader reaction, it was very small, but all of it was, where the hell's the second book? So we went all in and put out the second book, and it really wanted to be a trilogy, so the second book was nearly twice as long as the first. And of course, if there's one thing people don't want to read, or want to read less than a novel by somebody they've never heard of with nothing to recommend it, it's two books by somebody they've never heard of that nobody's recommended. So we learned the hard way that self-publishing isn't really the answer to those kinds of questions. If the frustration is I can't find a market for my work, self-publishing, it doesn't create the market, it just creates the work. And so, having done those two books, then I decided to actually start doing the shoe leather work and going to classes, going to conventions. I went to World Horror in 2004 with that book, and with Chapbook, which you held up a moment ago, In the Shadow of Swords.
Ah, yes.
It's
the one I haven't got to yet.
Yeah, it's a prequel to Radiant Dawn and Ravenous Dusk. And it's about a United Nations weapons inspection team in Iraq searching for weapons of mass destruction, and they inadvertently come across the Garden of Eden. And that was a thing that I wrote and slapped together at Kinko's. The cover art I did just using Dover clip art in Photoshop in order to have something as a calling card that I could actually give somebody that I might be able to cozen them into actually reading. And so I gave one of those to John Skip when I met him at World Horror in Phoenix, and he read it on the plane. He was really impressed by it. He asked for more, and so he ended up reading Radiant Dawn and Ravenous Dusk, which are a huge departure from any kind of thing that Skip would normally be into. And after that, we became good friends. And based on that mutual respect for each other's work, I'd grown up reading splatterpunk stuff and loved not just the work that Skip Inspector and Dave Scow and Brian Hodge and that whole crew had done at the time, but the way that they changed how authors relate to a readership. They brought in a lot of the cinematic stuff in their work, but they brought in a rock star sensibility to how they related to their readership. They weren't really these kind of shadowy, numinal, half real figures that authors had really been up to that time. I mean, as an author, you still kind of have more image control than a lot of other people, because you're not putting yourself out there as a performer necessarily, or you have the option of not doing that. You can still be just this shadowy silhouette figure who puts out these amazing works, and you can leave people to kind of speculate what that person is like. Having grown up,
amazing works.
Yeah.
How did working with an artist to get this out, how did that differ from text only?
Oh, it's a world of difference. I would say it's an entirely different animal from writing prose. It's actually everything I always wanted to do with writing film. I went to UCLA in order to study film production, and literally the day that my first day on campus, they completely did away with the undergraduate film production major. And my experiences in Hollywood and at UCLA had kind of really showed me that if I wanted to have any creative control over the kind of thing that I did, I should just go into prose. And so I've always approached film very cautiously, and I've gotten burned over and over again with putting a lot of heart into a project and tried to get it off the ground and nothing happens. So with comics, you have the ability to create an entire visual world, but you're dealing with that artist, and so you can completely you still have that interaction and still have being able to see the visual thing completely take your breath away when you actually finally see it. But it's not a question of hundreds of people and millions of dollars, and so you can still kind of tinker with that world. I love it. I love collaboration. I love being surprised by things in your own work when they come back at you, and collaborating with somebody who has complementary skills and skills that are in many ways indistinguishable from magic is a wonderful way of doing that, because you write something and then he draws it and shows it to you, and it's so much weirder than what you did, or than how you'd envisioned it, that you get inspiration within that inspiration. Mike had illustrated a number of my projects before. The chap you held up, the Electric Eye, was one of the earlier things that we'd done. And in that he did illustrations for a prose piece. And he also did illustrations for my book, All Monster Action, which is recently reissued. I don't know if you got that. All Monster Action. I don't think you have the one that Dubish did the cover for. You have a different version of the new one.
I do have a different version of the new one.
Right.
And the new one is also graphically impressive as well. I love the cover job that was done on that. That was very impressive.
And it's fascinating to me how people relate to and how people grab these things. I grew up very much in love with comics and very lurid, sordid graphics and things. And so I'm still a sucker for a great illustrative cover. But I also still wear T-shirts with graphics on them, which I understand it kind of sends out a message that you're an immature person. So the when we put out All Monster Action, it had this really insane cover with monsters tearing ass on it. It's a depiction of the climax. And when I got the sketch art from Mike for that, I was still in the process of finishing that story. And so it turned into an arms race where he made the thing so much weirder than I thought it was going to be. So I went back and jammed more stuff in there, and then he added more stuff in there. And so it was mutating and cooking, and the proteins were kind of synthesizing whole new proteins as it was developing. And yet readers didn't seem to grasp that excitement. And then fast forward a couple of years, and with the new edition, rather than use the old cover, Michael Kazepis came up with the concept and brought it to Matthew Revert. Matthew Revert is incredible graphic designer. I think he's the Chip Kid of Bizarro and indie fiction right now, because he's really kind of changed the game in how people relate to that aesthetic. He's done some images that, rather than depict something that's inside the book, give you the feel of what the book is like. And so I love how the cover of that is, it's a depiction of a Betamax cover with the hand lettering on it. And I still have some old Betamax tapes exactly like that from when you tape weird things off of TV that otherwise you'd never see again, and then you'd share them with your friends and stuff. And so it captures that vibe. It captures that sitting under the blankets with a flashlight, eating Pop Rocks and reading comic books kind of vibe. I think better than the illustrative fiction did, and readers seem to as well, because readers are picking up on it and getting and appreciating what's in it a lot better. And I wonder whether a graphical versus an illustrative cover, whether the readers relate to it themselves, or whether it passes the "would I be embarrassed to be seen reading this on a subway" test. Because if you're reading something that has monsters on it, it's like you're wearing a T-shirt that has snorks or something campy on it. It kind of advertises that you're a campy person, but in somehow it's a sinister button down or Aloha shirt or something rather than a cheesy T-shirt. And It's funky. I'm trying to be less. I'm trying to be more open to finding out what the reader wants rather than going, I know what you want, because I've done that and fallen on my face more than enough times over the years. So it's fascinating how people pick up the things, the things that are basically portals to another world that you're going to go into. Mike also did the cover for Repo Shark, which I really love, and which I think perfectly captures that vibe of this beautiful place that you're destroying by enjoying it. And readers have been kind of slow to pick it up. The graphic didn't seem to really fire people's imagination so much as the concept did, and so it's taken longer for people to respond to it. Mystery Meat as well. We did this really amazing, lavish, gnarly, kind of challenging cover that we thought would speak to readers who have a nostalgic love of horror anthology comics, going back to the EC stuff like Crypt of Terror and Tales from the Crypt, up through the underground horror comics.
That creepy vibe. Creepy magazine.
Right. Well, it's and yeah, because we have horror mascots in there and stuff. We also were riffing on the underground horror comics from the 70s, like Skull and Slow Death Eco Funnies and stuff, because those took the kind of corny horror anthology thing with a mascot narrating and stuff, but they took it into a world of real horror. And so, Slow Death Eco Funnies would do special issues, each one, one on cancer, one on air pollution, one on Greenpeace and species extinction and stuff. And they use those very sordid tropes to try and examine, look, this is the real world horrors that we're all perpetuating. We're all the Crypt Keeper. And so we're kind of trying to balance that. And I think it's a really rarefied taste. It's not something everybody can get into, but it's one of those things that when you find the right people who appreciate that, yeah, it's like fresh blood to them, or new batteries. So yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah, speaking of punks and you having an experience of, oh, maybe I should turn myself down.
Hmm?
There we go.
Yeah.
With the experience of you writing for an artist, with an artist together.
Right.
I had just discovered this, and the tale is in the All Monster Action that is coming out.
Right.
From you. The also you've played both sides of this coin, having written a story that is in an anthology for Mike Mignola's Hellboy.
Right. I've been lucky enough working with Skip and an editor, primarily an amazing editor named Jeff Connor, to do a number of tie-in things and to get to play in other people's worlds. Hellboy was most definitely my favorite of those. Chris Golden was doing this series of anthologies. He did Odd Jobs, Odder Jobs, and Oddest Jobs. And so we had a story in Oddest Jobs, and it was, we took that mandate very, very seriously. We wanted to do, the weirdest conceivable thing that still was within that world of folklore. And so we had a story where Hellboy and Abe Sapien, and we were allowed to pick any era. And so we wanted to pick that sweet spot, like right after the Conqueror Worm, where you had Hellboy was still in the group, and Abe Sapien was in the group, and Roger and Liz Sherman, and they had jetpacks. There was one, I think there's a brief interlude in the Conqueror Worm, and I may be mistaken, could be Wake the Devil, where Hellboy's got a jetpack, kind of like the Rocketeer. And so we did that stuff, and we have the BPRD fighting eco-terrorists who are trying to reunite Typhon and Echidna, the two the patriarch and matriarch of all of the monsters in Greek mythology.
Congrats to you for making me oh god, I reacted out loud. I'd said something, and then my husband started to panic, like, what's wrong? It's like, nothing, I'm just reading.
Right. Yay!
And that's from that story.
Oh, phenomenal.
Yeah, that was last night. So
yeah, and so we had a ball writing that story. We actually made Chris Golden kind of uneasy with, you know, some of the stuff that we put in there. And we had to remind him more than once. You said oddest jobs, man. So come on, let us do the work that we're here to do. And they let us do it. And more than that, when I came back to them about reprinting the story, and this is one of the amazing, unique things about Dark Horse that I think sets them apart from just about every other company. Every other company, understandably, when you write something for them, a lot of times it's work for hire, even if it's not. They're still very prickly about letting you reprint it because they want to own their things. Dark Horse is uniquely respectful of the artist. I contacted them, and they said, yeah, we don't have a problem with it. And we commissioned new art for it. So Mike did 2 new pieces of Hellboy art to go along with the story, which are just lovely. And they said, just make sure that you insert the legal stuff that credits that asserts that it's Mike Mignola's universe, but you're welcome to do it. And yeah, I absolutely love that and love them. And if they're listening, they should call me because I need work. But I'd done a story for MySpace Dark Horse Presents, MySpace being a social media platform that pre-existed before Facebook, but was essentially the same thing, but crappier. And they let, it was a story that an 8-page story called New Meat, which was the seed that became Mystery Meat. And an artist named Jeff Wamister drew the 8-page piece, which I think you can still find online. And when I asked them about reprinting it, the contract terms pretty much dictate that the story belongs to Jeff and me. So I contacted Jeff about a reprint, and so that story appears not in the Mystery Meat book itself, but in Cowboy Cow's family feed bag coloring and activity book, which is a ancillary bonus item that we made for our Kickstarter backers. And so we were able to reprint the 8-page Jeff Wamister story, which is really cool. A lot of comic companies won't let you play with their toys, let alone take the toys home with you. So, golly, wait, what? Wait,
no,
I just saw a text message. Is that for me?
Do what?
I just saw a text message. Says, I must depart, and I am so thankful. Is that you?
Yeah, I am. I am. I am very, very thankful for the time that you have taken to be here with me today.
Sure.
To speak with me about the things that you have done and what you are up to. Where can we find All Monster Action?
You can find that at kingshotpress.com. And they've got a variety of holiday specials going on right now. It's right now just in a Dead Tree version. There should be a new ebook version up by mid-December. They can also find it on Amazon if they want to make the richest man in the world richer. Okay. But yeah, I would go look for King Shot Press. And if you're interested in Mystery Meat, that is available through Comixology. There's a digital version of that. Yeah.
That is wonderful, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today, Cody. Absolutely. And I wish you an awesome day.
Thank you. You too.
And thank you so much. Mm-hmm. And I look forward to speaking with you again in the future.
Yeah, let's do it. I'll try to think of something else to say.
Awesome. Thank you. As always, take care, everyone.
All right. Be well and drink more coffee.
Yes.